We're going to be taking our first step into solving quadratic equations. A quadratic equation is any equation that can be written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. This is a very important form and is either called general form or standard form of a quadratic equation. Generally, it's a really good starting place to start any conversation about quadratic equations. We're going to take our first step into solving quadratic equations, and we're going to do that through factoring. So the definition that I would like to discuss is called the zero product property. Now, the zero product property is, we're going to be solving by factoring, but we're going to use this zero product property. And the zero product property says a times b is equal to 0 if and only if a is equal to 0 or b is equal to 0. Simply put, when we have if we have two things multiplied together and that yields a product of 0, by the way, the result is called the product, and the things that are multiplied together are called factors. Sound familiar? So if two factors are multiplied together and the product is equal to 0, then the first factor is equal to 0 or the second factor is equal to 0. Now, this is sort of a brand new statement, so let me read that again. A times b is equal to 0 if and only if a is equal to 0 or b is equal to 0. So mathematically, this really brings up two different statements. The yellow one says, well, if a is equal to 0 or b is equal to 0, so if the orange factor is equal to 0 or the yellow factor is equal to 0, well, then the product is equal to 0. That's one statement, and it's fairly obvious, I think. Or if you have two factors together that equal to 0, then a is equal to 0 or b is equal to 0. So maybe let's just take a second here. 2 times 3, those are two factors. If I multiply together, they yield 6, a product of 6. 4 times 7, well, the factor of 4, a factor of 7, we multiply them together, that gives us 28. Well, how about 5 times an unknown number is equal to 0? Well, really, that unknown number is equal to 0. Similarly, if we have a triangle and a square, two factors, and they multiply together to give 0, a product of 0. When is this true? When the triangle is equal to 0 or the square factor is equal to 0. Hope that made sense. Now let's go back over here. We're going to solve the first equation by factoring. Then we're going to check my solution by substitution. What's really important to use the zero product property is that one side of the equation must be 0. Very important. What am I going to do to the left-hand side? The left-hand side, I'm going to factor. So the polynomial x squared minus 4 is factorable into factors x plus 2, x minus 2, into the conjugates. So I just restated the quadratic equation in its factored form. Now, when is this true? So if you notice, what I'm going to do is I'm going to equate one of the factors is equal to 0. I'm going to equate the other factor is equal to 0. So I'm going to use the zero product property. Two things multiplied together to give me 0. Well, that means that both factors, or this is true when both factors, or first factor or second factor is equal to 0. Now I just simply solve like a linear equation. So x plus 2 is equal to 0 if I subtract 2 to both sides. And I solve for x in that first factor. In that second factor, I'm going to add 2 to both sides because this is just a linear equation. So I get my solutions that x is going to be equal to -2 or +2. Those are my solutions. Now I'm going to check. Is this true? Well, let me check. And when x is equal to -2, we have -2 squared minus 4 is equal to 0, or 4 minus 4 is equal to 0. 0 is equal to 0. Hey, that's true. Since it's a true statement, my solution is true. I'll also do the next check. The next check would be, well, when x is equal to +2. So we would have 2 squared minus 4 is equal to 0. I am just taking this equation right here, plugging in the value x is equal to 2, and what I have is 4 minus 4 is equal to 0. 0 is equal to 0, so that's true. So we have truth. So x is equal to 2 is also a solution. Now, checking is not necessary here, but it just tells us we're right.